Episode 2: Freedom versus Algorithm. Isaiah Berlin and Lao Tzu and AI Control. Introduction: The invisible hand of the algorithm. Imagine this. You wake up to the soft glow of your phone. It's suggesting a new song to start your day. On your commute, the GPS tells you which route to take, avoiding traffic as if by magic. During lunch, Instagram serves up an eerily spot-on ad for the sneakers you vaguely thought about yesterday. That evening, Netflix auto plays a show it picked, and you think, well, I was in the mood for a comedy. By bedtime, you've scrolled TikTok far longer than intended, the next video always too enticing to skip. It's been a day orchestrated by algorithms, humming along in the background of every choice. But here's the kicker. It felt like your own free will the whole time. In an age where our attention is bought and sold, we have to ask, how free are we, really? Hello, and welcome to the Age of Distraction. I'm Miran Davrin, your host and friendly digital philosopher in training. In Season 1, we're exploring how to find meaning and balance in a world of constant connectivity and algorithmic influence. Today's episode, Freedom versus Algorithm, Isaiah Berlin and Lao Tzu and AI Control, dives into the tension between personal freedom and the unseen algorithms shaping our lives. We'll bridge insights from Isaiah Berlin, a 20th century thinker famous for defining two kinds of liberty, and Lao Tzu, the ancient sage of Taoism who taught the art of wu-wei, or non-action. And we'll see how their ideas shed light on modern dilemmas, from social media feeds and smart city surveillance to China's social credit system and biased AI. It's going to be a wild ride through East and West, past and future, all to unravel whether we're steering the ship of our own lives or quietly being steered by lines of code. Before we jump in, a quick note. If you enjoy this episode and want to support the show, please consider subscribing to our Patreon. It helps keep the podcast going and gives you perks like early access, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes updates. You can also visit our website for show notes and references from today's discussion. All right, thank you. Now let's get into it. Two concepts of freedom, Isaiah Berlin's warning. Let's start with a bit of wisdom from the West. Isaiah Berlin, a political philosopher writing in the Cold War era, gave us a powerful framework to understand freedom, one that uncannily predicts our issues with algorithms today. Berlin said there are two concepts of liberty: negative freedom and positive freedom. Don't worry, this isn't a dry civics lesson. These ideas are actually pretty intuitive once you get them. Negative freedom is basically freedom from interference. It asks, what's the realm in which I can do what I want without others stopping me? Think of it as the freedom to be left alone. If you want to spend all day reading or dancing or coding in your garage, negative liberty says no tyrant or busybody should prevent you, as long as you're not harming anyone. Berlin championed this kind of freedom as essential. It's the leave me be liberty that protects individuals from an overbearing authority. The more you can go about your business unmolested, the more negative freedom you have. It's the kind of freedom enshrined in bills of rights, freedom of speech, religion, the press. Basically, back off and let me live. Positive freedom, on the other hand, is the freedom to control your own destiny and realize your purpose. It's about who or what controls me. Are my decisions truly my own? Am I master of myself? Positive liberty is often described as self-mastery or autonomy. It's the idea of being free through personal growth, discipline, or even collective rules that make you better. It asks, who's in charge of my life? Is it my rational decisions, or my impulses, or someone else telling me what to do? At first blush, this sounds great too. Who wouldn't want to be the author of their own story, right? The catch, as Berlin pointed out, is that positive liberty can take a dark turn. You see, once you start saying true freedom means doing what's best for your higher self, someone might come along and claim, hey, I know what your higher self really needs, so let me make you do it. In other words, positive liberty can become an excuse for coercion for your own good. Berlin was writing in the 1950s with fascism and communism fresh in memory. He saw how regimes could twist the idea of freedom. For instance, a government might say, we're taking away your choices, but it's to make you truly free. Free from ignorance, free from selfish desires, aligned with what a good citizen should want. It's a bit like a parent locking the cookie jar and saying, "Trust me, you'll thank me later for your freedom from cavities." Historically, positive liberty has been used to justify all sorts of heavy-handed control. If an authority believes it knows your true needs better than you do, watch out. They might feel entitled to impose those needs. Berlin's main warning was that, unlike negative liberty, which just says hands off, positive liberty can license oppression if abused, all in the name of a higher freedom. Here's a concrete example to illustrate Berlin's point. Imagine a city that decides people would be truly free if they weren't tempted by junk food. Positive liberty thinking, freedom to live a healthy life. So the city bans all fast food and sugary snacks. On one hand, maybe folks get healthier. On the other hand, if you really want that donut, well, too bad, Big Brother knows what's best. That's a loss of negative freedom. You can't make even an unhealthy choice. Berlin would chuckle darkly at this and say, "See, they took away your basic freedom for the sake of some ideal of freedom." It's a paradox. In striving to maximize a certain vision of good freedom, we might end up with less freedom overall. Sound familiar? We'll soon see how today's algorithmic nannies sometimes do something eerily similar. But before jumping to 2025, let's bring in our second thinker from a very different time and place, who also had a lot to say about control and freedom, albeit in a more poetic way. Wu Wei, Lao Tzu on letting go of control. Travel with me back over 2,500 years to ancient China. Picture a quiet old sage riding off into the mountains on a water buffalo, leaving civilization behind with nothing but a small scroll of wisdom. Legend has it that this was Lao Tzu, author of the Tao Te Ching and the grandfather of Taoist philosophy. Lao Tzu lived in a time of social chaos and constant warfare, and he looked around and basically said, "All this human scheming, it's out of whack with the natural order. We're trying too hard to control everything, and it's making things worse." His remedy? A principle called Wu Wei, which translates to non-action or effortless action. But don't be fooled by the term. It doesn't mean sitting on your butt all day. Wu Wei means aligning with the flow of nature, acting without forced effort. It's like being in the zone, doing things in a way that feels natural, unforced, and harmonious. To grasp Wu Wei, think of those times when you've been in a groove, maybe playing a sport or music, or just cooking a meal, where it all felt smooth and intuitive. You weren't overthinking every move. You certainly weren't trying to dominate or control the situation. You were responding to the moment, letting things unfold, going with the flow. That's Wu Wei. In contrast, the opposite, let's call it not Wu Wei, would be when you micromanage everything and try to bend life to your will. We've all been there too. When you plan a picnic and carry out a 50-step contingency plan to control the weather, the bugs, the sandwich to condiment ratio. Spoiler, it rains anyway, the sandwiches get soggy, and you end up frustrated. Lao Tzu would gently pat you on the back and say, "See, forcing things just breeds resistance. The harder you grasp, the less you actually hold." One of Lao Tzu's famous lines goes, "The world is ruled by letting things take their course. It cannot be ruled by interfering." In other words, the more you try to control, the more you lose control. It's counterintuitive, but think about holding a bar of soap. Squeeze it too hard and pop. It slips away. Wu Wei is holding life lightly, with an open palm, not a clenched fist. Lao Tzu even extended this to leadership and governance. He believed the best rulers were those who interfere the least. When a master governs, the people are hardly aware he exists, he wrote, meaning a great leader doesn't micromanage or impose heavy rules. Instead, they create conditions for people to flourish naturally. There's also a cheeky line. Governing a large country is like frying a small fish. You spoil it with too much poking. I love that. Too much meddling will ruin the whole thing. A Taoist government, in theory, would be almost laissez-faire. Set basic guidelines aligned with nature's way, then step back and trust people. In practice, ancient Chinese emperors rarely lived up to this ideal. They tended to love interfering, but the idea survived as a countercultural thread through the ages. So, how does all this relate to our modern predicament with algorithms and digital life? Well, let's connect the dots. Berlin warns us about external controllers, even benevolent ones, limiting our freedom in the name of some higher good. Lao Tzu warns us about the folly of trying to control everything rather than letting natural balance emerge. Both are, in their own way, critiques of over-control. One is focused on political liberty, the other on harmony with the Tao, but they surprisingly meet in the middle on a key point. Forcing things often backfires. There's a kind of natural freedom that gets lost when we or our institutions overreach. Now consider, we've built a digital world that runs on countless algorithms designed to optimize, nudge, and control outcomes, all ostensibly for our benefit or convenience. Have we, perhaps, created the very thing Berlin cautioned against, a system that might oppress in the name of a better life? And are we violating Lao Tzu's wisdom by inserting AI interference into every corner of existence, instead of sometimes letting things be? These are big questions. Let's dig into some real examples to make this less abstract and to make you deliciously paranoid on your morning walk in true podcast fashion. Modern relevance, life under the algorithm. We live in what some call the algorithmic age. From the moment we wake up and check our phones, to the time we ask Alexa to turn off the lights, algorithms are quietly, relentlessly shaping what we do and even how we think. Unlike an obvious human tyrant, algorithms are invisible, pervasive, and often helpful. They're more like a soft power operating behind the scenes, which in some ways makes them trickier to recognize and resist. Let's unpack a few arenas where this plays out. Social media and entertainment, the feed that never sleeps. Ever find yourself glued to TikTok or YouTube, unable to stop scrolling? Don't worry, you're so not alone. The average TikTok user now spends over an hour and a half per day on the app. That's like watching a feature-length movie of bite-sized clips every single day. But unlike a movie, the feed never ends. You could scroll forever. Why? Because the algorithm keeps serving up what you're likely to watch next, learning in real time what makes your thumb pause. It's like having a personal DJ for your attention, spinning tracks it knows you'll dance to. The result: you are free to enjoy endless entertainment, but your attention is effectively under the algorithm's control. Now, there are upsides to this. You discover content that genuinely delights or inspires you. Boredom is banished, for the moment at least. The algorithm can even create a sense of community by connecting you with niche interests, like suddenly you're deep into, say, Swedish woodworking TikTok and loving it. This is the convenience and personalization side of algorithmic life. If negative freedom is freedom from interference, one could argue these apps aren't forcing you. You choose to keep watching, right? True, but here's where it gets thorny. The choices are being subtly engineered. The house always wins in Vegas, and on social media, the algorithm always wins. It's designed to keep you hooked because more scrolling equals more ad revenue. That's the cynical view, and perhaps a happier user, the benevolent view. Do you really have freedom from this influence if resisting it takes Herculean willpower? I mean, how free do you feel when Instagram's pull to refresh feels like a slot machine? Or when Netflix's autoplay starts the next episode before your better judgment can kick in? Consider this a clash of two freedoms. On one hand, you have a negative freedom to close the app whenever. Nobody is literally chaining you to TikTok. On the other hand, your positive freedom, your capacity to direct your own attention deliberately, is being undermined by an AI that's basically a supercharged Skinner box, learning exactly how to press your buttons. It's consensual, but is it informed? Unlike Berlin's tyrant who says, "No phone for you," the algorithm says, "Oh, go on. I have another video. It'll make you happy," and slyly adds, "Trust me, I know you." It's a sweet form of control, but it's still a form of control. Let's sprinkle a bit of dark humor. It's as if we've all been assigned personal digital butlers who anticipate our every whim. Might I recommend this article, sir? Perhaps you'll enjoy this meme, ma'am. But these butlers get paid by how many hours they can keep us in the digital mansion's casino. They won't stop serving the cocktails of content. And we, polite guests, rarely tell them no. Surveillance and social credit, Big Brother's upgrades. Moving from your pocket to the public square. Smart city surveillance and the infamous social credit system. If social media algorithms are the friendly butlers, these are more like the strict headmasters of the algorithmic family. Now, different countries handle this differently, but let's talk about the most extreme example. China's evolving social credit system. It's a program, still in flux, that aims to monitor and rate citizens' behavior at scale. Think of it as a giant algorithmic scoreboard for how good of a citizen you are. Pay your bills on time, follow the rules, score goes up. Break laws, or even just annoy the authorities, score goes down. And the kicker, your score can have real-world consequences. As of a few years ago, millions of people have already felt these consequences. By 2018, Chinese authorities had reportedly blocked people from buying plane tickets 17.5 million times due to social credit offenses, like unpaid taxes or fines. They also barred millions of train ticket purchases. Imagine going online to book a trip, and the system says, nope, you haven't been behaving, vacation denied. And offenses aren't just big crimes either. Even minor things like walking your dog without a leash or jaywalking can ding your score. In Shenzhen, the city's AI cameras will actually catch jaywalkers and instantly text them a fine, complete with a photo of them in the act. Yikes! It's like an AI hall monitor that never sleeps. One Chinese slogan puts it bluntly: once you lose trust, you will face restrictions everywhere. From a government perspective, the argument is that this system will improve public behavior and order. That sounds a bit like chasing a kind of positive freedom for society, making people better for the collective good. Less fraud, more trust, safer communities. That's the sales pitch. But in practice, it veers into Berlin's nightmare. Paternalism meets high-tech authoritarianism. It's an external force heavily interfering in individuals' lives for their own good, and thus annihilating negative liberty. Critics, both in China and especially abroad, call it Orwellian, a 24/7 surveillance state. It's Big Brother with a spreadsheet. And yes, it's deeply dystopian to Western sensibilities. If Lao Tzu time-traveled to now, he might say, wow, you guys really took interfering to a whole new level. This is like trying to catch a river in a net. It's the anti-Wu way, an extreme of control-freak governance. Now, lest we get too smug outside China, many countries use algorithmic surveillance, just in less overt ways. In the US and Europe, we don't have a single social credit score, but we have credit scores for finances, background checks that scrape your online life, predictive policing, and massive data collection by both governments and corporations. London and New York are bristling with CCTV cameras. Your smartphone constantly pings your location. Your credit card purchases are tracked and can affect your ability to get loans. The difference is mainly who holds the reins and how transparent it is. In liberal democracies, there are more legal guardrails and debates, lots of debates about privacy. But surveillance capitalism, as scholar Shoshana Zuboff calls it, is arguably a softer mirror of the same thing. Our data being used to predict and shape our behavior for profit and governance. The algorithms here might not openly shame you on a public billboard for jaywalking, but they're quietly noting, calculating, and acting on everything from your Google searches to your grocery list. It's a trade-off. Some argue all this data and AI could create safer, more efficient societies, fewer crimes, customized services, traffic that manages itself. That's the dream of positive liberty via tech, using rational tools to engineer a better outcome for all. But Berlin would caution, who decides what's better? And at what cost to individual agency? If you're constantly being nudged or constrained by systems you can't even see, is that really freedom or just a gilded cage? Algorithms at work. Hiring, firing, and fates by AI. Speaking of cages, let's talk about the workplace and opportunities. How algorithms increasingly play gatekeeper. There's a story that's practically folklore in tech ethics now. Amazon's AI hiring tool. Around 2014, Amazon tried to automate resume screening with machine learning. Sounds smart, right? They fed it resumes of past successful hires to teach it what to look for. Except, plot twist, most of those hires were men, tech being male-dominated and all. So the AI concluded, in essence, men are preferable. Women? Not so much. It started penalizing resumes that even mentioned the word women's, as in women's chess club captain, and it downgraded graduates of all female colleges. In short, the algorithm taught itself a sexist bias from the data. As soon as Amazon noticed, to their credit, they scrapped the tool. But it was a sobering lesson. Algorithms aren't magically fair or objective. They inherit our human flaws unless we're very careful, and sometimes even then. Now imagine how many companies don't catch something like that. Automated hiring systems are used widely to filter applicants. If the algorithm has any hidden bias against women, minorities, older candidates, you name it, it could silently be tossing out qualified people left and right. You, the applicant, might never know why you didn't get a call back. Was it your skills? Or did the machine not like that you went to a community college or that you have a 5-year employment gap? Maybe for raising kids or military service? The freedom to get a job based on merit can be curtailed by an algorithm's secret rules. This is a subtler form of control, not as creepy as a social credit score, but potentially life-altering. It puts a new spin on positive versus negative liberty. You are free to apply anywhere. No human is blocking you outright. Yet an opaque system might be limiting your opportunities in ways you can't appeal or even detect. Similarly, consider predictive policing algorithms used in criminal justice. They analyze crime data to predict where crime is likely or who might reoffend. In theory, this helps allocate police resources efficiently. A seemingly rational approach for safer communities, again, that paternal vibe, will keep you safe, trust the data. But ProPublica's investigation into one such tool, Compass, found serious racial biases. The algorithm wrongly flagged black defendants as high risk nearly twice as often as white defendants. It also tended to wrongly give white defendants low-risk scores more often. In plainer terms, a piece of software was amplifying systemic bias, labeling some people as more dangerous than they were. If you're a judge or parole board using that, it might sway your objective decision, leading to harsher treatment for some just because the algorithm, trained on historically biased data, said so. For those individuals, that's freedom taken away. Perhaps more jail time or stricter probation, thanks to a mathematical model. And if you ask the algorithm why, it won't tell you. Often, even the developers can't fully explain a complex model's decision. It's a black box. When an algorithm's recommendation can affect your livelihood, your liberty, or your reputation, it takes the idea of who controls your fate to a new level. Instead of a king or judge, you have a faceless code and data amalgam nudging the outcome. It's not intentionally malicious. Algorithms hold no grudges, yet, but that almost makes it more concerning. You can't reason or plead with it. As the saying goes in computer science, garbage in, garbage out. If flawed or biased information goes in, decisions come out with a shiny high-tech veneer, but the same old prejudice underneath. A double-edged sword. Now, I want to be fair and balanced, because it's too easy to spiral into technology bad, freedom doomed despair. The truth is, these systems are double-edged swords. We've talked a lot about the edges that can cut us, loss of autonomy, bias, surveillance. What about the edges that help us? Algorithms do empower in many ways. They democratize information. Anyone with an internet connection can learn almost anything now, often aided by recommendation engines that surface useful content. They enable personalization. Your streaming music service might make better mixes for your taste than any radio DJ ever could. Your phone's map app likely saved you from countless hours in traffic jams by interfering with your dumb human instinct to take the usual route. E-commerce algorithms recommend products you genuinely needed but might not have found otherwise. Medical algorithms can scan X-rays for early signs of cancer that doctors might miss, literally saving lives via pattern recognition superpowers. These aren't trivial conveniences. They're significant quality of life improvements or even life-and-death improvements. Even in the realm of freedom and justice, algorithms used wisely can reduce human bias. For example, if we manage to create a hiring algorithm that's truly neutral to gender and race, learning from Amazon's flop, it might actually outperform biased human recruiters who subconsciously discriminate. If judges use data-informed tools carefully, it could counteract gut prejudices and standardize decisions more fairly. Some proponents of risk assessments argue this, albeit contentiously. And social media, for all its pitfalls, has given a voice to the voiceless, sparked social movements, and connected people across vast distances who would never meet otherwise. Those are expansions of freedom. Freedom to speak, to assemble digitally, to access knowledge. So it's not black and white. We've basically unleashed powerful genies, algorithms and AI, that can either liberate or subjugate, depending on how we design and use them. The situation right now is that these genies were let out of the bottle mostly by corporate wizards aiming for profit, and governments now also eagerly harness them for control or efficiency. In the rush, we, society, didn't fully anticipate the side effects. It's like we got this magic and said, cool, make my life easier. And then years later, oh no, it's also making my life more manipulated and maybe a bit dystopian on Tuesdays. The key is, and this is where we circle back to our philosophers, how do we balance things? How do we enjoy the genuine benefits of algorithms without handing over our souls and data on a platter? How do we maintain true autonomy in a landscape that is constantly trying to autocomplete our sentences and our lives? Do we slam the brakes on tech, unlikely and probably unwise, or do we steer it better? Berlin might say, guard your negative liberty. Set limits on how far these systems can intrude, demand transparency and accountability. Lao Tzu might say, cultivate some detachment. Don't surrender your inner self to the whirlwind of tech. Find moments of stillness. Go with natural rhythms, not just algorithmic ones. In fact, detachment is a big concept in Taoism and Buddhism, a freedom that comes from within by not clinging. There's a modern parallel. Maybe don't cling to your phone 24/7. Don't let every notification yank your mind. Easier said than done, I know. But even small acts like turning off autoplay, scheduling no phone, hours, or mindfully choosing what to click can be expressions of freedom. It's like practicing digital wu-wei. Sometimes the most powerful move is to not take the bait the algorithm dangled. All right, pep talk aside, let's head toward a resolution. What can we take away from all this? Conclusion: finding balance in a programmed world. We've gone from Oxford-like lectures to ancient Chinese poems to TikTok feeds and surveillance streets. It's a lot, but there's a common thread. The tug-of-war between control and freedom is timeless. The players and technology change. Yet here we are, still grappling with how to live freely without either descending into chaos or shackling ourselves for our own good. One thing seems clear: extreme answers aren't very satisfying. Total escape from algorithms isn't really feasible, unless you plan to join Lao Tzu in those mountains. Tempting, but then you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. On the flip side, surrendering completely to algorithmic control, letting every decision be made or guided by AI, doesn't sit right either. We humans have an innate desire to choose, to err, to learn, to be surprised. A life too optimized might paradoxically feel suffocating, like being lovingly smothered by a smart blanket. So it's about balance, an achieving that starts with awareness. By just recognizing when and how algorithms are influencing you, you reclaim a bit of agency. It's like catching a magician in the act. Once you see the trick, it's less enchanting. If you know YouTube's autoplay is designed to keep you hooked, you might be more inclined to hit pause and say, actually, no, I'm going to bed. If you're aware that your Facebook news feed prioritizes engagement, often showing you stuff that riles you up, you can consciously say, I won't get provoked by every post. Maybe I'll even take a break or seek news elsewhere. These are small acts of digital self-defense, little reclaimings of freedom in daily life. On a bigger scale, society is already wrestling with these issues. Debates about data privacy laws, AI ethics, algorithmic transparency, and regulation of tech companies are all essentially about drawing lines. Where does helpful end and harmful begin? For example, the EU's GDPR law gives people the right to know and control how their data is used. That's a push for negative liberty, freedom from unchecked corporate intrusion. There are calls to make certain algorithms explainable, especially in crucial areas like hiring or criminal justice. So if you're denied a loan or parole by an algorithm, you at least get to know why and challenge it. That's injecting a bit of democratic oversight, making sure the invisible hand has some accountability. What about our philosopher's guidance? Let's give him a mic one more time in our context. Isaiah Berlin might urge us. Cherish your freedom to say no. Opt out when something feels too invasive. Support a pluralism of choices. For instance, if one social network becomes too manipulative, we should be able to flock to another that's more respectful of users. Don't buy the line that one formula or one algorithm knows what's best for everyone. Value pluralism, in Berlin's view, means there isn't a single algorithm for the good life. Different people will value different things, and that's okay. We need room for that diversity, which means not getting all funneled by the same AI towards the same definition of success or happiness. Lao Tzu might counsel, practice Wu Wei in digital life. Sometimes do nothing, resist the urge to constantly tinker and control every outcome via apps and tools. Embrace a bit of randomness and slowness. Take a walk without your phone dictating the route. Discover music by humming to yourself. Okay, maybe not that, but you get me. Also, remember the power of detachment and flow. If you feel overwhelmed by the digital onslaught, step back and reconnect with the natural, literally touching grass, as the meme goes, or figuratively just letting your mind be unstructured for a while. In that space, you might find your genuine desires, unfiltered by algorithmic suggestions. And when you re-engage with tech, do it more intentionally. Use tools that serve you, and be wary of those that make you serve them. It's also worth noting, algorithms are ultimately created by people. We're not facing an alien invasion. Again, not yet. This means we collectively have the ability and arguably the responsibility to shape how these systems work. Demanding ethical tech, supporting businesses that respect user freedom, and even learning a bit about how these algorithms operate can all tilt the balance. Think of it as bending the arc of our digital future toward more freedom. It won't happen automatically. There's no algorithm for freedom, huh? It requires us being thoughtful and sometimes pushing back on convenience when it crosses a line. As we close, I'd like to invite you to reflect on your own relationship with the algorithms around you. Where do you feel the tug of control most? Is it the irresistible pull of your social feed? Is it the way Google preempts your questions? Or maybe how your smartwatch nags you to stand and breathe? I mean, thanks, watch, but I know when to breathe, usually. And how could you introduce a little more freedom there? Maybe it's as simple as turning off a notification or as bold as taking a weekend offline. On the flip side, what's a way you appreciate algorithmic help? And how do you ensure it stays your servant, not your master? I'll share something from my side. Working on this podcast, I use a lot of digital tools and research, and it's easy to get trapped in what the data says will be engaging. At some point, I have to step back and trust a more natural creative process, my own flow, rather than over-optimizing every sentence for clicks or whatever. It's tempting to let the algorithm dictate. There are even AIs now that predict how well content will do, but that feels like losing the art to the algorithm. So, I try to use the tech, but ultimately let the human lead. It's a bit of a dance. Sometimes I lead, sometimes I let the AI lead when it has something genuinely helpful, but I try never to let go of the fact that I am responsible for the direction. All right, that's enough philosophy for one day. If you found this exploration thought-provoking, please consider hitting that subscribe or follow button so you don't miss upcoming episodes. And if you want to support the show further and be part of our community, I'd be thrilled to have you join our Patreon. Your support helps me keep this content coming, And patrons get some extras like Q&A chats and early access to episodes. You can also find show notes on the website. I'll include references for some of the facts and sources I mentioned. Yes, I see the irony of asking you to trust my curation of information. Always double-check if you're curious. Next episode, we're continuing our East meets West journey with something really fascinating. The illusion of self, Plato's cave and Buddha and avatars. We'll ask, in this age of social media and virtual identities, are we seeing reality or just shadows on a cave wall? We'll get insights from ancient Greece and ancient India and look at how our online avatars might be changing how we view ourselves. I'm super excited and a little scared for that one. It's guaranteed to bend your mind in the best way. So stay tuned for episode 3. Until then, be a little mindful of those algorithms, but don't fear them. Use them as tools, laugh at their recommendations when they're wrong, and remember that you have something they don't, the ability to care, to dream, and to define your own purpose. As Lao Tzu might say, by yielding, you prevail. And as Berlin might add, never surrender your capacity to say yes or no. Take care, stay free in both big and small ways, and I'll catch you next time.